What's up, guys? We're back here with Project DMR. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update on the status of this gun, and that's because I went ahead and did all of the internal upgrades before doing the paint. And maybe not all of the internal upgrades, but most of them, at least enough to get this gun competitive. So we're going to go ahead and paint this thing now. Off camera, I went ahead and taped up the dials on the optic, the glass on the optic, obviously that's a huge one. And then I kind of taped up the trigger group area, just because I don't want to risk any paint getting into the gearbox and kind of gumming things up a little bit. Beyond that, I gave it a good thorough cleaning and a little bit of a degreasing. In most circumstances, I would hit this with a really fine grit of sandpaper. But because I kind of want the gun to have a little bit of a weathered look over time anyway, if paint kind of chips or peels off in certain areas, I'm not super worried about it. And it's not a gun that I'm going to field all the time anyway, because not every field will let you shoot a gun, an AEG that's over 400 feet per second. So we're going to start by painting this. I've got the gun just kind of hanging here from a C-stand. I mentioned to you guys that I'm a photographer, so I have a bunch of C-stands laying around. So I just kind of hung it that way I can easily kind of get in and out around it and paint it in all directions. And then once the primer's on and then dry, and then the base coat is on and then dry, we'll go in and we'll do the camo job, so stay tuned. Alright, so for the primer, we're starting with just a gray Rust-Oleum automotive primer. Doesn't really make a difference. I just always prefer gray. Okay, first off, excuse the messy garage. I did this at my parents' house just because I happened to be visiting them and they had more room than I do. I don't really have space to do this at home, so. With the primer, it's just a matter of making soft, light coats. The first coat doesn't necessarily need to cover the entire gun. That's the reason for doing multiple coats. The big thing is to just take your time and make sure you're giving it an even amount of coverage and preventing any running or dripping like that with the primer. It just gives it a nice, solid surface for the paint to adhere to. If you want, you can paint directly onto the bare metal, especially if you've sanded the gun down. But I think using a primer just gives the finish a nice quality and hopefully a little bit of longevity to the paint job. Alright, so after 3 coats of primer and a good little while to let it sit and dry, it's not tacky anymore. We're going to start with our base coat. This is the Rust-Oleum Camouflage. It's the double ultra cover khaki is the color. If you've seen my VSR 10 and some of the other videos or on my Instagram, it's more of like a brown kind of tan. It's a little more desaturated and darker. This is a lot more of a warmer yellowish tan to give it kind of a real deserty kind of look. So we're going to use this as a base. So I'll give it a couple of really solid base coats and then we'll move on to the camo. Alright, so for the base coat, the 2X Ultra Cover camo paint does a really good job of providing nice coverage, nice thick coverage without having to really spray the hell out of the gun. It's again just kind of the same as with the primer. Just take your time and make sure you're covering everything. With an M4 or anything that's a little more complicated than say like a VSR 10, just make sure you're getting all of the different angles, and because there's so many different little cavities and crevices, especially in the rail system and stuff like that. Alright, while the second coat on the gun is drying, I'm going to go ahead and hit these mags. As you can see, I taped them up. I use it's 3M automotive refinishing tape. I like it because I already had it since I work on cars a lot. But I like that it peels off really easy after painting. Alright, so a little time has passed to let it sit and make sure it's good and dry. Hopefully there's still enough light here today for you guys to see this get wrapped up. But so everything is dry. Had a couple of coats. It's not super perfect, but like I said, I didn't want it to be perfect. But it is pretty damn good. It looks really nice. I could honestly just leave it like this and it would probably be pretty cool. But I want to camo it. So I got some of this foliage stuff. It's just fake grass and things like that that I picked up at Walmart. It's like maybe $8. I'm sure you can probably get it cheaper elsewhere, but I happen to already be at Walmart at the time, and I'm really into instant gratification, so I just grabbed it from Walmart. The colors that I'm going to use for the camo are the Rust-Oleum Camo Brown, and the Rust-Oleum, it's Forest Green. Yeah, Forest Green and Earth Brown. And if there's any areas that get a little bit too built up or too obvious looking, I've got some sand color to just kind of like even it out and sort of blend it a little. So this is kind of a very haphazard process. I'm sure you've seen it in a lot of other videos. It's there's no science to it. I'm just going to kind of lay some of this crap over the gun in different areas. Hopefully that wind doesn't flip me. And we're just going to give it little spurts in different areas. Alright, so for the camouflaging process, there's kind of two ways that you can do this. You can do it my way and just use a smaller amount of foliage and you're just spraying to add on the color. Or the other thing that you could do is kind of the negative approach. And I don't mean negative in a bad term, I mean it as you completely cover the gun and just spray the crap out of everything, and these small amounts of negative space will provide your camouflage. Either one works, but because I had a limited amount of foliage that I really liked the size and shape of, doing it this way was perfect. It was just a matter of laying it down in uneven and random patterns and just adding little spurts of brown and green here and there to create some of the camouflage patterns. And then, as I said, I used the sand color to just sort of even it out in the areas where it became too heavy, where if you held the nozzle in one spot for too long and there's too much brown or too much green, it's just a nice way to blend it out. And it also kind of gives it a faded out look, which sort of gives the illusion of age, like it's been painted for a longer time and maybe seen some sunlight and some use. It's a pretty easy process. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just kind of a matter of taking your time, adding, and making sure you don't have any huge areas that are all one color. Randomness is definitely the key. And I definitely, like I said, I definitely recommend having kind of a neutral tone that's similar to your base color to sort of blend it out, because when you do have spots that are too saturated in one of the camouflage colors, they start to become really apparent. Okay, so we're back. This is the last step. I'll give you a quick shot of the gun. It's, like I said, not perfect. There's a couple of little like spattery areas, but it kind of, in my opinion, adds to sort of breaking up the monotony of all it being a solid color. So I'm not too worried about it. Plus, it's going to get beat up, scratched up anyway. And if I decide I hate it, I can always repaint it because it's just paint. This is probably one of the most important steps if you want it to last. Like I said, I'm not worried about it getting too beat up, but I would like for it to last as long as possible. So this is from a company called USC. It's a US chemical company. They make automotive paint and supplies. So this is actually an automotive clear coat. It comes in an aerosol can. I think they're usually around 10 or 15 bucks a can. I'm not 100% sure. The thing that I will tell you, if you are going to use this stuff to clear your gun, this comes with, it's sort of two-sided. You have to put this plunger into the bottom of the can to release the activator, and then the clear coat is actually only good for about 48 hours, so you have to be pretty much ready to spray once you activate it. So you got to give it a good shake, take the plunger off, flip it over, push it in, activate the clear coat, the hardening agent, and then spray it. This is a matte clear coat. It comes in gloss and semi-gloss and all of that, but I mean, no point in having a glossy gun. It's just going to reflect light and look shitty. So we're going to use the matte clear coat, and hopefully it sprays pretty well. Alright, so you can see I pulled the plunger out of the cap, pushed it into the bottom. I definitely recommend using like the ground or some really hard surface when you're going to activate it, just because that really is kind of a pain in the ass. One thing that I will say with this clear coat is it reeks. So make sure you're doing it in a well ventilated area. And actually I would recommend using a respirator, honestly. As always, just long, even, smooth strokes to avoid any running. I will place links to all of the products I use down below in the description. Let me know if you have any questions, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time.